In this example, we are going to calculate a 95% confidence interval for a mean. To estimate the average nicotine content of a brand of cigarettes, 50 are randomly chosen. Their nicotine content is measured and found to be 1.71 milligrams on average. We'll assume that we know the standard deviation to be 0.75 milligrams. And we'll use that information to calculate a 95% confidence interval. So we could use any calculator to do this computation. I'm just going to use Excel here to operate as my calculator, but I'm not going to be using any particularly specialized Excel functions. Okay, so we're just going to fill in that sample mean that was determined, 1.71. We'll fill in the sample size of 50, and we'll fill in the standard deviation that's given, 0.75. Now we'll use the formula here to calculate a margin of error, and that's 1.96 times the standard deviation divided by the square root of the sample size. 1.96 is the critical value that corresponds to 95% confidence. So if we were doing a different confidence level, we could look up the correct value to replace the 1.96. But we'll type the formula in like this: equals 1.96 multiplied by the standard deviation, 0.75. So I'll click there on that 0.75. And divide by the square root of the sample size. The square root in Excel is SQRT, parentheses. Click on that sample size, close those parentheses, and there's our formula, equals 1.96 times the standard deviation in cell B3 divided by the square root of the sample size in cell B2. Hit enter. And there's our margin of error. Now the great thing about doing it this way is if we were to go back and do a different version of the problem with a different sample mean, a different sample size, a different sample standard deviation or population standard deviation, we could just change those numbers and this margin of error would be recalculated. Now the actual confidence interval is the sample mean minus the margin of error up to the sample mean plus the margin of error. So I'll enter equals, and we'll click that sample mean here minus the margin of error, and that's the lower limit of our interval. And then for the upper limit, we'll type equal sign, we'll click that sample mean, and add that calculated margin of error. And here I've set these to show 3 decimal places for our answer. So we'll just state a final conclusion, and we could say that with 95% confidence, the true mean nicotine content is between 1.502 milligrams and 1.918 milligrams.